Consistency and daily habits are the key to long-term success. In this episode, Coach Clarence Ferguson explains why weighing yourself daily builds awareness, how small habits lead to big results, and why understanding your why on a deep level is critical for creating change. We also dive into adapting to challenges and the power of asking the right questions to create lasting change. Welcome to Rise to Lead, the podcast where heart-driven leaders come together to inspire and innovate. They will share actionable tips and insights that help you lead your team more successfully, advance your career or business as a leader, achieve greater impact, and experience deeper fulfillment. I'm your host, Regina Huber, guiding you through deep conversations about leadership that's rooted in service, freedom, and the desire to leave a positive mark on the world. Are you ready to create real change in your leadership, your career, your life? Join me for a complimentary Lead and Thrive session, a 60-minute one-on-one strategy session where we will discuss your specific needs and map out the next steps to lead yourself and others powerfully. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Visit transformyourperformance.com/Lead Thrive session to book your Lead and Thrive session today. Let's work together to make it happen. Welcome to the Rise to Lead podcast. I'm excited to connect you with Clarence Ferguson from Arizona today. He is a coach who wears several different coach hats, and we want to know more about that for sure. Coach Clarence, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for coming on with us. Let me quickly introduce you to our listeners, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, so Coach Clarence is a visionary leader, I love that already, who's transforming the lives of men and women over 40, assisting them to live their absolute best lives. He is a true embodiment of what it means to conquer the three fundamental pillars of life: fitness, finance, and mindset. Great combination. Clarence Ferguson, the dynamic CEO of Fit Over 40 with Coach Clarence. Clarence doesn't just lead a tribe. He nurtures a community of individuals who are determined to rewrite their stories and embrace their peak potential. Welcome again.
Thank you. Good to see you again. Good to be on the air with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us about Clarence, or Coach Clarence even. What brought you to where you are today? And what are the different hats that you wear as a coach? Because I know you're into fitness, you're into finance, you are into all these different things. So tell us more about that.
Well, basically, I'm like a dinosaur because when I started coaching people, we weren't called coaches. We were just called personal trainers.
Mm-hmm.
So getting started in the 90s, that's what I did. And a lot of the stuff that I do is brought out from my own experiences, such as watching a lot of people in my family be unhealthy and live lives dependent on medicine and just not being healthy. So that kind of drove me to say, I want to do something different. I want to change how I live and help other people do the same. Because we came from a generation where there were only people who were usually were in the gym were people who were athletes, or they had a reason they had to be in shape, or maybe they played sports, something like that. So generally people just went to work, they ate, they just did whatever, and they got a certain age, and then they started to fall off, if you will, just get old and die. That was kind of the theme. So that kind of drove the fitness part of it. And as you evolve in fitness, you start meeting other people, you start learning different ways to help people. And so I got into nutrition, which was really a game changer for a lot of people, because at a certain point, you can only do so much exercise. You got to really start looking at nutrition, which then evolved into lifestyle. And a component of lifestyle is how you think, react, and do things that affect you in your day-to-day life, which is now the common term of mindset, which we spoke about earlier. And I think mindset, I agree with you, is very cliche. It's just a way of basically saying how you look and react to things and how you approach things is your mindset. So that became very important too. So I did that for several years. And then I was in the mortgage business. Like I actually got in the mortgage business in 2000 and was in the mortgage business until the big crash in 2008, which I'm sure you've heard of, where everything went to hell. And so got out of it and just kind of was playing in it part-time. And then I was kind of at a impasse in my career. Like, I don't know what I want to do. This is kind of getting old. I don't really feel like I have a direction. So I met with a coach. I got a coach and I was like, hey, I need to make my business go in a different direction and be more successful. And he says, you need to try to find a niche. You know, you got to niche down what you're doing, speak to the audience you want to speak to. And I was kind of just maybe like 45. And I said, when I was 25, I thought about different things and things were different. So I wanted to do something that was more related to my age at that time. So I said, okay, I'm going to deal with people over 40 because they all have similar problems. They usually have something that hurts. They were hurt. Uh, they dealt with finances, whether it's a divorce or maybe they made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. All these things were common. And the struggle is different because now you have children, you have careers. So that's what I niched down into. And that was the birth of Fit Over 40.
Okay. Yeah. So there are a lot of different elements in what you have done. It's quite eclectic in a sense, right? So I like to talk about my experience as eclectic experience, but I also see it in many other people in different ways, and it all comes together as a result of our own experiences and who we meet and who we are influenced by in a way, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk more about mindset and about potentially helpful habits in that
Yeah.
context. Yeah. Can you share a bit? Maybe share a habit you swear by that goes against common advice. I'm really looking for something different here.
um,
Not putting you on the spot.
no, it's not. That I swear by. Well, I fought with this for a long time, but it really makes sense now to me. When I say I fought with this, I used to preach the total opposite of this. But now something I do every day is I weigh myself. And the reason you weigh yourself because it shows you patterns. It shows you fluctuations in your weight. Some people will get on the scale after really having a great week and they get on the scale and they get disappointed. But what they don't realize is maybe they had food that was extra salty, or maybe they got up and ate, then weighed themselves, or maybe the night before their body was reacting to an intense session of exercise, so it was holding a lot of water. So by weighing yourself every day, you can see your body's pattern and you can manipulate your macros to find how much you need to keep going, whether you're trying to lose weight or gain weight. So that's something I do every day. And also just reflecting. Some days I could do more of it. Some days I do very short amount, but that's just a get up and you have to figure out what your day is, what your affirmations is for the day. So that's a non-negotiable. Like I said, sometimes it's a few minutes because maybe you overslept. Sometimes you get more time to sit and think about it. You get quiet and you just reflect on what you have to do. Most people are in a rut when they get up and they're running late and then they forget their to-do list and then they just go out and then the day's messed up. So that's something that I've been coached on really, and it's now something that's important that I try to do every day.
Yeah, that's really interesting about the weighing.
Yep.
So I have not weighed myself in forever, I think. And I didn't really feel a need for it. Because I also remember that when I weighed myself more, that was when I was at some point many years ago more obsessed with my
Yeah.
body weight. you know?
Mhm.
And so I actually didn't want to get back into that habit. But of course, because you are such an expert in what it all means, it has, it makes sense, right? Because
Yeah.
you
And like I
you
said, I fought
evaluate,
with it.
you assess everything, and you analyze what it actually means for your body. So that's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I fought with that idea because I used to tell people, don't do that. Do it every 2 weeks or every
Mhm.
week or sometimes every month. But as I learned and saw the value of it, it made sense. So
Okay.
so now it's, if you're coached and lead from fitness, you have to do that. It's
Yeah.
just a marker. And that's how we can, it's just holding yourself accountable. And I'm sure we're going to get into this, but it's one of those things where you start setting habits, daily habits.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. So, what's a mindset shift that most people overlook when trying to stay consistent with helpful daily habits? We also have the not so helpful daily habits
Right.
sometimes, right? So, we're going to talk about the helpful ones today.
Okay.
So, any secret sauce you can share with us?
Well, I think people have to have realistic goals. That's why you get coaching. You have to have someone who's been down that path before that knows where to go. Because people say to me, all right, I want to lose 40 pounds. Okay, of what? How long is it going to take you? And why do you want to do that? And you have to be able to answer those questions because then that's going to set the tone. Okay, well, I need to do that in 6 weeks. So then you have to have a realistic conversation. Are you going to be able to pull that off in 6 weeks? Probably not, unless you do something very drastic. So the thing is to teach people to be realistic about their goals. Okay, you didn't gain 40 pounds overnight. You're not going to lose it overnight. So what I try to get people to focus on is smaller wins. Like maybe a person doesn't drink enough water. So instead of having, 80 sodas, why don't we cut that down to 60? Not even that. And that's, you would think, well, why would you tell them to just get rid of it? Because you have to be realistic. People have habits. So if them say they come back on their accountability call and say, well, I only had 60, that's a win. Next week they say, I'm down to 40. Now their body isn't craving it. Now, let's say a month, 2 months into it, now all they do is drink water. What the side effect is that they've lost weight because they've got rid of some of those empty calories. So what I tell people is being at a healthy weight is a side effect of these daily things you do. So it's really teaching people that little daily things that they do consistently will help them win. And you have to teach them to simplify the things they want to do. So if you, like you say, I want to make 100 grand next year and you make 50 right now, you have to count backwards. You can't get to the finish line. You have to count backward for what does it take to make how many calls do I need to make? How many closings? Mostly people who make that kind of a jump in income are doing something in sales. So they have to know how many prospects they have to have, how many people they need to talk to, how many calls they have to make. And then so what you
Or
do,
my coaching clients.
right?
But she did that in her job. She
Right.
negotiated another 50K
Right. You have to
successfully.
know those numbers. And then what are the steps to get to them? So let's say you make 20 calls a week. Well, that's not going to be enough. You got to jump that up to 100. And you say, well, I'm too busy. How do I do it? Again, you're going big. So rail you back down. How many can you put in an extra 30 minutes each day to get to those numbers? So it's really simplifying daily things that most people think is a challenge because people think big picture and you have to narrow. Like when you take a picture, you focus in on what you want to really see. The big picture is I want to lose 40 pounds. But how do I get to the 40 pounds is narrowing that focus into the little things. Okay. I'm inactive. Okay. We got to get you active. What's a simple thing you can do every day? Walk. Doesn't require any skill. If you've been doing it most of your life, just walk. Start moving. My client who lost 150 pounds, all we did was meet every day and we walked in the park. She didn't touch her
Walking
weight for
is
6 months.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Hmm.
it. It also allows me to listen to a lot of stuff that I want to listen to, like
Right.
things that I want to learn or that interest me. So it's wonderful. And especially in the winter, as soon as it's warm enough, I love to take my bike for a
Well, it's
ride.
80 degrees here today. You can
But
come to Arizona. It's going to get up to
right, yeah.
100.
Yeah, I know. Um, And, and in the winter when it's really cold, I walk a lot, especially on the weekends. I sometimes walk for 4 or 5 hours.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
That's
it.
good.
If it wasn't for the feet aching, I could walk all day.
Yeah.
You know,
Eventually your body gets a little tired. That's
right.
good.
Yeah,
4 hours,
it's
that's a lot.
usually the winter shoes. Anyway, I want to pick up a few things that you said, right? So you said realistic. So I personally like to use the term attainable, because sometimes we tend to be too realistic. So what does it mean? Well, we see what we see in our so-called reality, right? And we allow ourselves sometimes to be limited by that. So sometimes
Yeah.
also I think it is a good idea to move away a little bit from what we call realistic, because we don't
Mhm.
really know what's possible. Anything's really possible. And at the same time, I get what you're saying, right? I totally get that, because if we make it too big for our mind,
Mhm.
then we might get frustrated and we might give up
Yeah,
because we don't see
that's
the
the common
results
thing.
immediately, right?
Right now,
So,
February is quitter's month.
mhm,
Everybody who made New Year's resolutions are already
yeah.
done.
Yeah. I ditched those a long time ago, those resolutions. I think that was totally useless. But yeah, we can have, of course, we can have desirable goals. We can have, or whatever you want to call it, right? It just has to be set in, and that's where you come in a frame, so to speak, that actually can work, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, the soda. So I never drink sodas. I haven't had a soda in many years, I guess. Uh, Maybe a tonic water once a year.
They're great
But
if you
I
put
did
booze
smoke a
in
lot.
them.
Huh?
Oh, you did used to smoke?
I used to smoke a lot until I moved to San Francisco when I
Okay.
was in my, when was that? Late 30s. So again, a while ago, I quit smoking, and I did it a little bit as you said, first of all, I didn't prohibit myself to smoke. That was very important for me. Prohibition
Yeah,
does not work for me. And I think it
right.
doesn't work for many people, right? So I said, okay, I can always smoke tomorrow if I want. That was my uh my mantra, so to speak.
So you
Giving
know what I
myself
would ask you?
permission, although I didn't do it. And sorry, go ahead.
If I was talking to you and we talked about smoking, I would ask you, what do you get out of smoking?
Yeah, and that brings me to the other point that I wrote down here to talk about with you, the why, right? So what I did with the smoking is, though, I smoked to, like, instead of the 40 sodas from the 80, I did cigarillos for a
There
little
you go.
bit, but not all day long, right? Just if I
Yeah.
absolutely could not be without it, I would smoke one of those and try to not inhale. And then after a while, it was just like uh, they dried up somewhere, which was quite surprising. But anyway, so let's talk about that why, because you mentioned, yeah, it's important to know why you want to form a habit or drop a habit, right?
Mhm. Um, your why is dictating a lot of things why you do things, whether it's a why that's going successful or a why that's going negative. And sometimes you almost have to go in a realm that you're not even qualified to be talking about. A
Mhm.
lot of people, and I use weight because everybody can relate to weight, but it's the same thing in business. Why someone doesn't go out and make the phone calls they need to make.
Mhm.
Why do they eat stuff that they know? There's usually a deeper reason. So you have to dig into that why. And a lot of times when you first meet with somebody, you're just talking, letting them talk and hearing their story, and they'll tell you the why. I had a woman that I trained many, many, many years ago, and she was severely obese, and she told me that she was molested. And the reason why she kept the weight she kept on, she said she felt safe because no one would find her attractive and molest her again.
That
So that's
happens a
another
lot.
thing.
It happens a
Right.
lot. It's a protection,
It's
right?
protection, right? So that
Yeah,
has nothing to do with how you're eating, why you're not
yeah,
walking. That's
right.
something way deeper than that. Our thoughts can self-sabotage. And that was, you asked me what one of the shifts. Everybody can show you how to exercise. Everybody can show you how to make money. Everybody can show you how to get in the stock market. But everybody can't teach you the mindset of the habits of those people who are successful. So that is a major shift for me. And that's what I focus on, because the other stuff is easy. If you teach someone how to balance their checkbook, they will save money, right? It's just do this, do this, do this. And you teach them that. And then 2 months down the road, they go, oh, I got $300 saved, before, when they were living paycheck to paycheck. So figuring out people's why, having them repeat it. Sometimes if you say, oh, that guy cut me off, I'm going to kill him. And then you say that again. That guy cut me off, I'm going to kill him. Eventually they hear the stupidity in what they're saying, right? We all get upset. We all say things that we don't do. The difference between someone who goes out and does that versus someone who goes, okay, I know I got upset, but if I go hurt this person, I'm end up in jail, or worse, I may hurt myself. And then you go back to reaction. So as you educate yourself and you study on things that you think are things that you allow to go in your head, those occurrences go down. So like you mentioned, smoking, I have a lot of friends, and myself, a lot of times we just do things because it's just a habit. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab a drink and then another drink. It's just a habit. Like, I hung out with friends who that's what they did every day. So you talked about avoiding it, so you avoid those friends, not in a negative way. It's just, hey, I have to make myself a priority, so I can't hang out with you guys as much. You can still hang out every once in a while, but if you find that you're in the same environment that's creating the same result, you have to change it. So figuring out the why, we could talk for hours about why, but a short thing is just figuring out why someone's doing something, and then having them see the destructiveness of it. That's where the change comes.
Yeah, right. And even, now I probably wouldn't smoke because I know all the stuff that they put into the cigarettes, and that would be a rebellious spirit by not smoking, because it's actually not the nicotine that is harmful. You can actually get that in a different form that's not harmful. It's all the chemicals they have put into the nicotine, because a tobacco plant as such is not harmful, as happens with so many other things, in the food industry and everywhere
Oh
else.
yeah, they
Yeah.
have to keep you eating it.
So, yeah, I know you know that. You're the expert here. So, yeah, and so we're talking mostly about self-leadership today, and maybe we also get to talk a little bit later in this conversation about how this all fits into leading other people potentially. But for right now, let's just stay in the self-leadership realm. And so how do you, let's say you have some habits going and you're trying to make them more consistent, right?
Mhm.
So, what is maybe one unconventional strategy that you can suggest that makes discipline feel effortless?
Hmm. That's a good question. And
And a tough
effort,
one.
I would say, first of all, I would never say that discipline is something that's effortless, because discipline, like motivation, it comes and goes. You don't feel like doing things every day. Now, anybody tells you that is probably lying, or they're taking a drug that makes them feel like that. Everybody, and I actually made a post about that today. Everybody just doesn't get up and feel it. So I always default back to set your habits. So same thing with, if you try to go to the gym every day. Try to, just little things you can control, because one thing can happen in your day to throw you off your discipline. Maybe like me, I had to rush to get your paperwork today, and I was way off. I had to move things around and get that done. Um, there's always going to be something, so you just get back to your fundamentals. So, and another thing for me is, if I know I got to check in with somebody, I'm going to do it. So, and I have a coach, so I check in. So self-leadership a lot of times is what you're doing when no one's looking, when only you know. If you can go to bed at night and go, okay, I did everything I was supposed to do. Or you can go, okay,
According to what I said, right?
yeah, yeah. For
As
lack of a better word,
Mhm.
maybe a to-do list, or you have a sheet like every day. I have something that I try to achieve, and you don't always hit the goals. You have to be realistic. You're not going to always hit everything. So what you do is you assess and go, and you learn to forgive yourself. Like, don't, because again, putting too much pressure on yourself and you'll fall. So you have to just go, okay, I didn't get 10 out of 10 things I did, but I did 7, you know? So what can I do to make sure I hit the 10? And then you're constantly reassessing and making adjustments. Like, to use a sports analogy, if a team is losing at the halfway point of the game, they go into the huddle, they make changes. Same thing you have to do at night and in the morning. What could I change so I can hit this goal?
Yeah.
So, and we all have to do. We all fall short of that. I even have guys who coach me, and we just talk real. Like, you don't always hit every goal. Mastery is when you get to about 90%. Most people are around 70 or 80, but 70 or 80 is better than 20. You're getting
Yeah.
a lot of things done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I like the idea of the huddle instead of beating yourself up, which is
right.
totally counterproductive, right?
People do
Because
that, and then that's why they stop.
yeah,
They
exactly.
they
So
beat
let's talk a little
themselves.
bit about this,
Mhm.
Clarence, about the phenomenon of self-punishment when
Ah,
we disappoint ourselves by not sticking to a routine, to the habits we've established for ourselves, right?
yes,
So this self-punishment or self-castigation
yes.
can really be quite counterproductive. It erodes our self-esteem, and it can even have a completely and fully sabotaging effect,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, I think you wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So I'm curious what you have to say about
So I think everything will tie back to what I said in the beginning,
it.
is having realistic conversations. And that starts with you first, yourself.
Mhm.
And then if you have a coach or an accountability partner, you have to just be realistic. You have to go, oh, your failure is part of success. No one goes this. They go here, here, here. People can't see me. I'm making a zigzag. No one goes to the rocket. A rocket doesn't even go straight up, which is funny. People think rockets go straight up. Rockets turn. They have to adjust for the gravity. No, nothing goes straight up. It looks that way on the outside because it's so big, but everything turns. Same thing with when you set out, you're going to fail. If you try to lose weight, you're going to screw up and overeat, or maybe you miss a workout. And then if you go back and go, oh, I'm just not good. A simple way to analogize this, and I'll explain how people fail and quit. They'll do, especially because it's easier with dieting and stuff. They'll say, all right, I started diet on Monday, and then I went out with my friends on Tuesday, and I blew it at a party, let's say. So they go, well, I'm just going to blow the rest of the week off and just start over. Instead of saying, okay, I had a meal that probably wasn't favorable to my goals, just start on the next one, the next morning, or the next event, the next thing. We get, again, or we say, God, this goal is so big, I'm never going to hit it. It's that negative self-talk versus, I've got a long time. I'm going to get to this goal. I'm going to be consistent every day. I repeat those things all the time. Consistency, consistency, consistency. It's habits. It's systems that you put in play. Tying into business is what we're talking about. Systems don't fail. You fail to follow the system, and that's what fails. Okay. So when you like, if you say, my goal is to talk to 10 people today, and you only talk to 2, and you do that over a course of 5 days, you're going to talk to 10 people when you could have talked to 100. Did you fail? Did the program fail, or did you fail? And that's the same thing when you say when people beat themselves up. So then it's like, okay, so why did you fail? So not, instead of I'm a failure, why did you fail? And then that brings in the self-realization that something I'm doing, fighting this internal thing that's preventing me from doing. Sometimes it's just our habits, we call it the inner B, and you know what the B word is. That anytime I joke with my clients and people, anytime you put an idea out in the universe goes, okay, we're going to see how serious you are. So you don't say, I'm going to be a millionaire by the end of the week. You go, I'm going to make more money so that I can live the lifestyle I want. Because what's more attainable, living the lifestyle you want or being a millionaire? How realistic is that, if in the sense of the steps to just living a better life? because you can control those little things. Like, I'm going to budget. I'm going to not eat so many calories. I'm actually going to track what I'm eating. I'm going to get on a call with the accountability coach. I'm going to read a book a day. I'm going to turn off the news because it's stressing me out. So what I deal with clients who beat themselves up is we just have a conversation. A lot of times I just use my own stories. I have fallen down. I've been broke, homeless. I got stories from them. I can relate to most of their stuff. But at the end of the day, you can blame everybody for your stuff. It usually goes back to you, because if you go through any bad thing that happened to you, at some point you contributed to that by either ignoring it or by not making an adjustment you needed to make, or just by staying put. So in terms of beating yourself up, you just have to learn positive self-talk. And a lot of people do that every day. Oh, I'm just not a winner. We call it stinking thinking, the stuff you say to yourself. That's why you hear people talk about affirmations in the morning. Get up and give yourself positive affirmation. I'm pretty, I'm successful, I can do this, versus, and we all do it. Oh my God, I got to get on this highway. It's going to be traffic. I'm going to be late to work. Like, all that. We all do it. So coaching and dealing with people who hold you accountable remind you of that. I use the analogy, very successful people talk about ideas. People who aren't successful talk about other people. So I can get on the phone with you in this Zoom and we can have a conversation. I could take something away from you. You could take something away from me. We're not on here talking about people. We're talking about ideas of how to be better. So instead of beating yourself up, figure out how you can do it better.
Yeah, it's an exchange, right, of ideas. And
Change
I
of
want to pick up
ideas.
a few of the ideas. So first of all, I want to also add the idea of self-compassion, right?
Mhm.
And you mentioned it in your own words. You said it in your own words. But self-compassion is really, really important, to not beat yourself up, which won't help you. Yes, you can hold yourself accountable or responsible for something, and just say, okay, well, I got so far today. I really want to do this differently tomorrow. So how can I get there? Right.
Exactly.
And then I want to pick up something else. And I know these are just different perspectives, right? And I, I used to also talk more about the universe as something that's actually outside of me almost, but it's actually, I now believe that the universe is not outside of me anymore. It's not about it responds to me. It's actually me, because
Yep.
I have accepted the idea that I create everything, including the people,
That's 100% true.
and I'm the center of my universe. You're the center of yours. Just look around, right? couldn't, couldn't be truer. Um, and uh, and in this sense, then, I create everything. And I also now, as a result of believing that, almost have to take 100% responsibility.
Yep.
And what does that give me, though? It gives me greater freedom.
Yes,
Yes, freedom comes with responsibility, but responsibility also comes with freedom. Isn't that amazing?
that's true. Mhm.
And then another thought I want to pick up. So I like affirmations too. I just think that sometimes when they go too much against what our subconscious beliefs are, they can also be even counterproductive. We really need to observe what they sound like to us, because if I get up in the morning and I'm broke and I say to myself, uh, I'm super rich, then
Right.
my mind will say, my subconscious will say, yeah, look in the mirror, you wish, right? And then it's not really helping me. So what I have found for those cases is that questions sometimes work a little better, and just working with the idea of possibility.
Sure.
Like, could it be, uh, am I open to the possibility
Yeah.
that money could come in different ways that I might not even be thinking of right now? Am I open to the possibility of bringing in so and so much more money into my business, into my, whatever it is, right? So really using questions sometimes opens up possibilities for our minds. And at the same time, questions, what they do is they look for answers automatically. Our brain will start looking for solutions. And that's what I really like about questions. There's this guy, I think his name is Noah St. John, who wrote a book about affirmations. And most of
Affirmation.
those questions start with why, if I remember correctly. And then there are other people who talk about quantum questions, like Brian Ridgway and other people. And there are several different systems who use questions, the Axis system and whatnot. But they sometimes have, in my case, have proven a little bit more helpful for the trickier pieces, for the trickier areas, right? So yeah, I just felt a need to, or a wish to add that. Do you sometimes use questions yourself?
Well, it's part of the affirmation. If your
Mm-hmm.
affirmation is to be healthier, how can I be healthier? There's your
Mm-hmm.
question.
Yeah.
We use $1 million because that
Yeah.
seems to be just a standard. But if you had
Right.
a 400,000 and you lived in an area where 100,000 was the gold standard, you would be considered wealthy.
Right.
So I love that you said I'm a millionaire. A million is a thing. The millionaire's mindset is what you want. How does a millionaire think? So there's your question. What does a millionaire do that I don't do? And how do you find that out? You study people who are millionaires, or you go to a coach and say, maybe you find a financial expert and you go, hey, I'm tired of being broke. How do I get unbroke? That's your
Yeah.
question. And then
Or a
he'll give you the
question, yeah.
tools.
Or a question could be, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were
Right.
finished. So another question that really opens up your mind and your possibilities, because we're talking about mindset, right? And it's not only about action. Yes, it's about action, but not only. So it is really also in this context, what if I could actually, what if I were prepared to do exactly the same things? If I were equipped with everything that's needed to achieve the same as this other person that I might be, looking toward for my goal, or comparing myself to, right? And those questions, I call those also self-empowering what if questions. I wrote about those in one of my previous books. So those have been helpful to me and some of my clients as well. And yeah, so I'm glad you also use questions and find them helpful. Now, before we wrap up today, let's talk a little bit more about consistency, because we both know that repetition plays an important role in habit formation.
Sure.
And at the same time, it can feel dreary and monotonous to many of us, especially those of us who actually like change. And I'm one of those people. So I don't always have a friendship relationship with repetition.
So you would break up your routine,
Mhm.
because any of the subjects we're talking about, finances, fitness, mindset, let's say maybe your coach says you need to read something every day.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't read that day. Maybe you listen to a podcast. Maybe you have you ever done you mentioned walking. A lot of people like to walk and do road trips because their mind just gets to roam free when you're walking. I don't know if you know, if you walk as much as you do, your mind is running. That's brain fitness. I just interviewed Adam Beckes, and we talked about brain fitness. What do we stop using our brains, and it's our own fault. Like we don't read, we don't. It's what you put into it. And so you talked about being bored. Like the exercise, people say, "Oh, you want me to walk every day?" You don't have to walk every day. You just need to move. Go play basketball, chase your
Mhm.
kids, do something. That breaks up that monotony. Try a new machine out, whatever. You control all of that, you know. And if you're finding the messages, I'm bored, hate this, then you got to ask yourself some more questions. Why do you hate this? What is it about? And then it'll help you find a solution. Because some people say to me, I hate going to the gym. I'm an outdoor person. Well, who said you had to go to the gym? Go
Yeah,
hike.
exactly.
Go to the
Exactly.
park and do calisthenics. You don't have to go to the
Yeah.
gym. Some people love jujitsu. You're moving. It's
Mhm.
burning calories. Most of those guys in there are very fit, and women. It's like I said, it's those questions, and that's when, like in our business, we do accountability calls. Like I have a call with my mortgage guy who owns the mortgage company I work for. We do a weekly, every 2 week accountability calls. He'll ask me, what are you struggling with? What's working? And he's far superior to me in terms of what he's done and his experience. He'll give me feedback based on what I say. And you have to be open to hearing something you don't want to hear. If you hear something that it bothers you, that's a you problem, because generally it's the truth you're hearing. If someone says, "Oh, Regina, you are so beautiful. I love those glasses. Who cut your hair? That's amazing." You're just taking it all in. But now, so let me flip it on you. I was like, you know what? That lighting back there really sucks. You need to think, what are you going to do? You're shutting down, right? You already said in the beginning, and that's why I use that example. I got my lighting in here. So I just picked that. But is it the same message or how you're receiving it? Do you
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone says to me, Clarence, and sometimes when you have a coach, you hear stuff you don't hear. Sometimes hey, you didn't put in the effort. Did you make this many calls? Did you do this? And if the answer is no, 100%. If you are doing it and it's not working, now we can dig deeper, analyze what we need to change, and then make the change for you. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
so mix it up.
Yes. No, it's great. So I just had something on my mind and it just slipped my mind real quick, but it's gonna come back. Uh, it's gonna come back or not. It's fine. We can always do an episode two at some point. At some
Absolutely.
point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do remember. Of course, I do remember. I actually used to hate physical education at school because of what you said. They were not the right choices for me, and
Right.
now I cannot be without moving. I love to dance. I love to move outside, whether it's on my bike, whether it's walking. And I'm not a runner. That's not something I enjoy doing. I used to live next to Central Park, Clarence, and I would try it a few times and I could not stand it. So I stopped doing it because I said, why should I force myself to do this if there's so many other options?
Right.
That I can actually enjoy and stay fit and have all these other side effects at the same time. So yeah, like for example, oxytocin when you dance, right? It's great. So
How often
yeah,
are you
I want to
dancing?
pick up. Sorry,
How often are you going to dance?
I I did it the most when I was in New York City, the most time. So now I'm not always there. And now so where I'm here right now in France, although I am back and forth, but there are none of my favorite social dancing options here right now. But I have an Afrofusion dance once a week, and I have a couple of Sabar um, courses once a week, and I do Ndombolo. So I have 3 to 4 times for sure.
Okay. I
Mhm.
like it.
Yeah. And
I don't
when I lived in New York
dance
City, I
anymore.
lived like up in Harlem for the most part, and I would
Oh,
usually walk all the way Central Park from north to south. And before so I lived in two different apartments there. Once I lived even 15 blocks further up or 18, and I would walk all the way down north to south Central Park on the weekend to my dance class at 57th Street and over to the west, and then I would do a 90-minute, very, very intense, some type of African dance class, sometimes West African. And then I would partly walk home again. Maybe not the entire piece, because my day only has 24 hours. But whenever I could do that, I would do that. So that alone is like 3.5, no, 2.5 hours already.
that's a lot. It's a lot of steps.
So yeah, but anyway, yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So anything else you would like to share that I haven't touched on?
No, I like where you're going with it. And I like that you brought up the topic before we got on air about mindset being a cliche. And but we have to, in our industry, we use words that people can
Mhm.
catch on to really quick. It's really about setting goals for yourself, realistic goals, having them tested internally and externally through coaching, and then reassessing those goals and making the adjustments. That's how you win in life, and you know that. And learn
Yeah,
from your experience, be open to others' opinions. Right now, we're kind of in a space of tribes. I'm over here and you're over here, and we're never going to meet because people stopped sharing ideas. It
right,
became, this is my way, this is my way. And
right.
so,
And wow, I could go for a walk. The sun came out again a little bit. See, see the lighting changes all the time. But I do have a meeting in 10 minutes. I think so. No,
me
maybe
too.
later. Okay. So yeah, thanks so much again for joining us
Welcome.
here today. I
I look
appreciate you
forward to
coming on
seeing
with me.
our show.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I appreciate you coming on with me. And thanks to everyone for listening in this episode. We talk mostly about self leadership today. It is one of the most important pieces of leadership. And if this episode resonated with you, shared with a friend or two or five, stay tuned for more next Thursday.
Mm.
Thank you for tuning in to Rise to Lead. Keep shining your light, standing up for what's right, and inspiring others to step into their brilliance. If you like this episode, please give it a 5-star rating and subscribe to the Rise to Lead podcast on your preferred podcast app. Until next time, it's Regina Huber, and in the meantime, remember to rise to lead.